Welcome back, everybody. It has been quite a long time since we have spoken. Very quickly, I want to thank everyone for the very kind messages and concerns left in the comments. In the very near future, I think I'm going to take some time and explain a little bit of that to you. But until then, we have plenty to talk about. As I'm sure you all know, Hurricane Lee has been in the top of the headlines as far as the Atlantic hurricane season. This coming on the heels of major Hurricane Idalia, which took place towards the end of August. Now, we will discuss Hurricane Lee and its effects and where it's possibly going to go, but first I want to talk about something that took place yesterday, and that is a major, very deadly earthquake that took place in Morocco in northern Africa. You can see the epicenter right here with the coordinates, and just to the immediate northwest, you see all these stone structures here. This entire area has basically been destroyed, as well as surrounding areas all over Morocco. As you can see here on the USGS, the 6.8 earthquake, which was downgraded from a 7.2, no surprise there, 18.5 kilometers in depth. This is extremely shallow, especially for a place like this, where most, if not all, the buildings are made of some sort of stone or material that has no give when the ground is shaking. If we take a look at volcano discovery in the past 24 hours, not only did we have this 7.1/6.8 in Morocco, but a few hours before that, yesterday, we had a 6.9 also downgraded from that 7.1 magnitude just to the northeast of New Zealand. If we check the 5.0 or greater, we could see a lot of action going on all over the world, specifically the Ring of Fire here in the Pacific Ocean. Not to mention almost a day ago, a 5.0 taking place just northeast of Bernie, California. Another area we need to be watching in the next few weeks. Now, very quickly, I want you to take a listen to this news clip where they talk about how this was the biggest earthquake by far to hit in over a century.
632 people have been killed in the most powerful earthquake to hit Morocco in more than a century. Locals and tourists were forced to run into the streets as buildings came crashing down.
There's panic. A couple darts into the alleyway before the building above gives way.
All right, now I can't show too much more video on this topic because of the good old copyright situation, but as of now, we are pushing 1,000 people who have died as a result of this earthquake, with many more missing. Unfortunately, as recent history has been showing over and over again, this is one of the deadliest earthquakes that the continent of Africa has ever seen. Whatever updates I find about this situation, I'll bring to you later on today or on Twitter and the Instagram accounts. So for now, let's move on to Major Hurricane Lee, which you can see right here, about to pass north over the Leeward and Lesser Antilles Islands. We also have Puerto Rico right here, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and then Cuba. And as of this hour right now, Hurricane Lee is still a major hurricane at 115 mile per hour sustained winds. Now, some of you may be thinking this thing is dying out as the wind speed's lower, but that is not the case. Taking a look at the next 5 days of what Hurricane Lee is supposed to do as far as wind speed and its possible track, if you notice here, Saturday into Sunday, we are in that hurricane wind speed status. If you notice these M's right here, that stands for major hurricane. So Lee is expected to actually strengthen once again as it curls into these warm waters and begins its track to the north. Now, many people are asking what is causing Lee to actually make this northern trend and why so many models show that exactly happening. If we take a look at current time, I want you to notice a few things. We have Tropical Storm Margot to the east of Lee, and then we have the Bermuda high bubble, high pressure system in the Atlantic Ocean. This is more times than not a constant and is the reason why hurricanes come off the western African coast and are pushed down into this warm water belt and make their way across the Atlantic towards the warm waters of the Caribbean. And then as influences of the jet stream are moving west to east and the high pressure bubble is morphing in and out of the Atlantic Ocean, that's what then allows these hurricanes to be released and to begin a northern trend. Now, as we move into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you notice that Lee stalls out a significant amount, down to about 5 to 6 miles per hour for about 2.5 to 3 days. The reason for this, if you follow this line here, is this is a high pressure bubble that is extending all the way through the southeast into the Gulf, and it's pinning Lee down in this area right here. Now, at the same time, I want you to see what Margot does, because if we watch closely, Margot is going to cut through this high pressure and actually aids in pulling that high pressure bubble away. We could see the cutoff line here now as opposed to in the Gulf. And naturally, because of the northern hemisphere and the fact that hurricanes spin in a counterclockwise motion, this is now allowing Lee to shoot up to the north, possibly affecting the northeast or any part of the eastern coast of the United States. Now, with that said, as we move forward, we need to worry now about the jet stream. Now, if you notice, the high pressure bubble in the Atlantic has pulled way off to the east, with Margot here settling in a pocket of that high pressure. We now have nothing steering Lee besides the spin of the Earth as it moves north, and now we need to look at the interaction with the jet stream. We see a high pressure to the west and a high pressure sitting here in the northeast. These are the factors that are hopefully going to be pushing Lee in a slight northwestern direction away from the northeast, as the jet stream lines you see here are dipping down into the southeast and basically creating a force field wall which is pushing the hurricane back out into the northern Atlantic. And for those of you that have never heard this term before, we now see at the end of the data here an interaction between Lee and, at this point, possible Hurricane Margot right here in the middle of the Atlantic. And if we had more data, you would see Lee move in this direction and then Margot swing underneath and dissipate. That's called the Fujiwara effect. That's when two extreme low pressure systems, which what hurricanes are, begin this interaction within about 800 miles of each other, where the bigger of the two systems tends to eat up the lower system in a pattern where they almost swing around each other, as you could sort of see right here towards the end of the data we have. So once again, very quickly, we'll go from today and we'll move forward to recap. The high pressure bubble is very much intact all the way into the Gulf, keeping Lee pinned down towards the Caribbean and the warm waters. Also the case with Margot. As we move into Tuesday and Wednesday, Margot is pulling north, and slowly but surely the high pressure bubble begins to pull to the east, allowing Lee to make that northern hook. And then as we move into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week, the jet stream wall moving west to east is pushing Lee out into the northern Atlantic, hopefully without many landfalls. Unfortunately, it's more than 5 days out and we have no clue what's going to happen. If we take a look at the most recent spaghetti plots, which contain all the different models and their projections of where Lee is going to go, we see a lot of them trending towards Nova Scotia. This line here with the triangles is actually the current direction in which Lee is traveling. So this is not a projected plot. This is just the direction it's heading in current time. But what I want you to really notice is some of these models trail off towards the eastern United States, some of them making a landfall. We have one in Jersey, one near Long Island and Massachusetts, as well as a landfall in Maine. So I want to be very clear about this. An East Coast landfall is not out of the question right now. Over the next 4 to 5 days, it is not impossible to see Lee heading up in this direction, the jet stream wall actually moving quicker than expected, which would then mean it's going to pass over Lee, leaving an opening for the hurricane to then move towards the eastern half of the United States. For those of you that have been following this channel and actually study hurricanes, we know full well that anything after 5 days, even 4 days, makes any of these situations possible. So the main point I'm trying to make here is if you live on the eastern side and coast of the United States, it is extremely important to at least check in on this hurricane once a day and have a significant plan for the possibility of Lee making a strike within the next 7 to 10 days. Now, one more thing I want to show you as far as the effects of Lee, regardless of if this thing makes a landfall or not. We're on a website called windy.com and we have the wave settings set up so we can look at the measurement and height of waves that are going to be produced by this hurricane. As we move through Saturday into Sunday, we begin to see the stall out of Lee, which is the concerning factor in where this thing's going to go, because once a hurricane stalls out and we hit that 5 to 6 mile per hour speed, there is no telling what's going to happen as far as the speed of the jet stream, the condition of the high pressure bubble in the Atlantic, and long story short, projections that we have right now go out the window. It almost seems as if Hurricane Lee is waiting for Margot to cut up through the Atlantic, allowing Lee to again become a major hurricane before it tears up the eastern seaboard. Sorry about this being a little choppy, but what I want to show you here is moving into next week, more specifically next weekend. If we zoom in here, let's just take a look at the waves that could be produced near Bermuda. We are looking at the possibility of 31-foot waves slamming into this small island by this time next weekend if Lee continues on this path. So as I said, regardless of the path of Lee, if it's going to hook out into the Atlantic, we're still still going to see major effects along the eastern coast, specifically the Carolinas, with the 13-foot wave situation, very rough seas, riptides, all those things for about a week. And once again, the reason why you're seeing such high wave heights is because Lee is expected once again to leave this Category 2/Category wind speed and move into the 4 and possibly a Category 5 once again. This is the Saffir-Simpson scale, which measures tropical depressions all the way to Cat 5s and the wind speeds that determine which one of those they are. I hope this video was at least somewhat helpful in the update with Hurricane Lee. Still major Hurricane Lee, 5 miles per hour away from being a Cat 2, but still currently a Category 3. Lee will strengthen once again before it starts making that northern hook. How strong, we just don't know yet, but moving forward, I will have daily updates, if not more than that, as we continue to push through peak hurricane season. Again, I couldn't be more grateful for all the comments and concerns people have left for me over the past month. It's been very interesting to say the least, but for now, we're going to stick to the major topics going on around the globe, and I look forward to seeing you all there as we post more and more content. With that said, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Shout out to Canada, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Stop right there, my friends. If you have not already, click that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Click all and you will get all notifications from this channel. And trust me, you won't be disappointed.